Hi, Nevar here, and today I wanted to talk about balance changes for Wesnoth 1.18 that I would like to make. I'm not saying that all of them will happen, but it is very possible that many of them will. But before that, there is a chance that official Battle for Wesnoth tournament will be happening in the future. It will most likely be rather casual tournament, and I wanted to check if that would be of any interest to you. So I decided to make a poll about this. Link in the description. This video will be split into two parts. In this part I will be covering Nalga Alliance, Dune Fog and Loyalists, and everyone else in the next video. So, starting with Nalgan Alliance, Poacher is one of the long-time offenders, and for him I would propose a very simple solution. +1 movement points and -2 HP. That leaves Nalga without 5 MP standard unit, but do they really need it? In my opinion, they don't. It makes them even more unqui. This will surely lower the entry level to this faction for new players, and at the same time it may improve rushing playstyle enough to actually be worthwhile, so opening dwarves to new competitive possibilities. It is also generally good change against factions that they typically struggle against, like Loyalists or Orcs, while leaving their good matchups mostly untouched. Additionally, because Poacher gets buffed like that, his level ups will be buffed similarly, which will actually make Trapper quite decent leader now. Next up is Dwarvish Thunderer, who is also not a great unit, but in his case, just decreasing the price by 1 gold should be enough to let him stay competitive against Poacher. And again, this is change that mostly touches upon matchups that are bad for Dwarf, and not very much so on ones that are already good for Dwarf, like Undead, where Thunderer is generally not a wise choice. Additionally, Thief, Griffon Rider and Dwarvish Guard may receive small buffs in form of 1 HP or similar. If we decide to try to make Nalga equally focused on its chaotic side, Thief buff will nicely complement that. Griffon change was discussed for a long time, as general impression of it is that of slightly underpowered unit, and finally Guard just requires small push in order to stay more competitive against other dwarves. Next up we have Dune Fog, and for them most units are performing quite well, and overall I'm quite happy with them, but one unit in particular stands out as quite underpowered, and that is Dune Soldier, and honestly I would straight up drop this unit price by 2. Thus far, this unit didn't perform well in any place with its price at 18 gold, and only at 16 gold it started to be seen a bit in Ultimate Recruits. In addition to this buff, I would like to nerf his HP by 1 to keep him more in line with other main units after this buff. Other units that are in my sights in this faction are Dune Herbalist and Dune Rover. While both of them are used and perform quite well, I do believe that small buff to keep them more in line with their counterparts from other factions is needed and will be good overall change for the faction. It will be probably something quite small like +1 HP for Dune Rover, while for Dune Herbalist it might be much bigger change, like even -1 gold, which I personally quite like, at least from observing the performers of this unit, mainly in Winter League and PQ Recruits. And finally, lastly we have Loyalists, and their story is that of two oppressive horses. Starting with Cavalrymen, this unit is famous in being hard to kill in some matchups, and that is completely at fault of its resistances. So the simplest yet most impactful change will be just reducing blade resistance by 10%, allowing grunts, elvish fighters, dwarvish fighters and all kinds of other primarily blade focused units simply perform better against it, making it far bit less oppressive against factions that usually don't start with units with pierce damage. Horseman is another phase of this oppression. This unit is simply very strong. It can be quite risky, but that doesn't justify the strength in possession of this unit. It is good in my opinion in every single matchup. It counters many of its counters quite well, as many factions possess mainly ranged forms of pierce damage, like Dwarf, Undead, Elves, even Dune Fog. Especially against Dune Fog and Dwarf, the oppression of this unit can be seen very well. In the case of this unit, I propose nerfing the price to 24 gold. There is also small buff for Loyalists that is increasing bowman damage in melee by 1, which should hopefully make him a bit closer to Spearman. In general, when it comes to Loyalists, I don't fear that all these changes will make them too weak. In my opinion, they simply don't have bad matchup as of right now. Some people say that versus Undead is a bad matchup, but in my opinion it isn't bad at all. Especially once you know how to play it well, in my opinion it is rather good matchup for them. But obviously, feel free to disagree with me. As for Heavy Infantryman, as it currently stands, this unit is really bad, but because it belongs to Loyalists, and because it can possibly simply counter all of Nalga with small buff, buffing it in its current state is rather a bad idea. Personally, I would rather rework this unit entirely rather than try to fix it in its current state, which because of one matchup might not even be possible. Anyway, if you agree or disagree with me, let me know in the comments. Well, that's it for this video. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Cheers!